How's it going, YouTube? Recently, we've seen a lot of comments on our videos asking for more budget-friendly decks. Decks that you can just build and start learning Grand Archive. And well, I think this set has the perfect deck for you to build if that's the case. Suited Allies. So if you know what Suited Allies are, and you might have heard about this before, and you probably know it's budget-friendly, but you're not sure how budget-friendly. You haven't looked into it at all, or maybe you haven't heard of it at all, and you just want to learn more about it. Well, this is the perfect time and opportunity to show off that deck. So to really show off how cheap this deck is, we're going to use Core TCG. Now, you guys know we're sponsored by Core TCG. That's why we're using it. We wholeheartedly believe that, they are a great supporter of GA, and we love working with them, and we love collaborating with them, and we want to show just how awesome it is to use our website and the new code TRUE10 to get 10% off any GA purchase. And then, of course, you also get shipping internationally. So anywhere you are in the world, you can build this deck using these cards from the website. First thing we're going to do is go to coretcg.com. Once we're here, we're going to go to other TCGs and go to Grand Archive. Here, this is all our Grand Archive cards, and they are pretty good prices, if I do say so myself. So, this is suited, so we're pretty much going to search up every suited card. I'm going to do that right now, and then come back and show you the whole deck list and some of the cards that we'll probably be missing, but you can easily pick up and the pricing for that. So I'll show you the finished cart and how much that costs, and then we'll jump to the deck list. So, 1 second. Okay, so we got all our cards here. The only cards we're missing are 3 more 3 of Hearts, 4 more 4 of Hearts, 2 Rouge, Ace of Hearts, 3 Noir, Ace of Spades, and 2 more Duchess, 6 of Hearts. So those are actually the more expensive cards, but still they're only gonna be like $2.50 to $3, depending on where you get them from, so not too crazy. We're going to get those cards, or I'll put them up on screen how much they cost, and at the very end here, once we get the whole deck list put together, and then we'll start talking about some upgrades you can even do to this deck to make it slightly better. But before we move on, even though there's only $31.30, let's type in TRUE10 to make sure we get that 10% back off our entire order, which can definitely help us pay for shipping, as Core TCG has shipping worldwide. So no matter where you are in the world, use Core TCG to get some of those awesome cards for a really good price, and then get an even bigger discount after using the TRUE10 code. Okay, real quick, I wanted to put in my own shipping address and show you guys, even after paying for shipping and taxes, we are still under $40, and that's also, on top of that, we're gonna get $3.89 back credited, so we can use that to buy more cards in the future. And honestly, if we had a bigger order, if you're buying a lot more cards, $100 or a couple $200 worth of cards, then that discount, or that rebate, if you will, that money you get, store credit that you get back, will be even bigger. So honestly, you're gonna start just basically getting free shipping or more in free cards the more and more you order. So definitely worth it to use Core TCG for buying any cards you might be missing. All right, so here's the deck list. We have Spirit of Fire, Lorraine level 1, and then a bunch of different swords. We have Sword of Seeking, Ornamental, Bulwark Sword, and Drawn Blade. So we have 4 swords that we can use later on with either damaging or using Blazing Throw to throw them away. We have all 3 baubles. We have Fire, Water, and Wind. That's just an extra little draw. We have Smoke Bombs to get through Taunters or Interceptors, and of course another draw as well. And then Safeguard Amulet and Terrafring for a little bit of protection. Terrafring in particular is really, really solid because it allows, if we're in that like ally v ally, or someone's trying to trade their board, it gives us an extra turn, or a little more protection for our own allies. That way we can go for a kill turn on our next turn. So the material deck's pretty darn simple. We'll talk about upgrades here in a second, but we even bought the Spirit of Fire also in that bunch of cards, and I'll tell you the full cost for this deck in a second. All right, so here is the main board. So I'm not going to cover every single card, but you can take a look at it here. We're only on the most expensive cards, which are the Noirs, the Rouges, the Duchesses, and the Veritas are all the most expensive cards, but they're only going to run you about $2 to $3 a piece. So with the cards that we're missing from our original cart, it was only up being just under $25. So with our original cart being just under $40 and this one being just under $25, I'm going to put the whole deck at $75. You can go whole Grand Archive deck for almost literally $1 a card. So only for $1 per card. That is literally insane, and it's a pretty darn competitive deck. You could take this to locals, easily win locals, you could probably win, almost certainly win store champs, and you probably could win regionals and or day 2 at events with this deck. It's a really strong deck. There's a lot of internal synergies and a lot of comboing you can do, and it's pretty darn good, trust me. I've taken it to locals and I have won locals with it, including also our other teammates, so don't doubt this deck. All right, so now upgrades. Let's start with the material deck because it's going to be the cards that are going to increase, I feel like, the deck cost the most. It'll probably end up still keeping the deck under $200, honestly, but one being the biggest one is that we don't have a Divine Relic. So getting a GCR in here would be huge, and we can bring that GCR in for over Drawn Blade or over Bulwark Sword. Whatever you want to do, either one's gonna be really solid, and if we do that, that's gonna actually, if we want to keep baubles in, we definitely can, or we can take all those out, because that GCR is basically acting as 3 baubles. We could also probably, depending on where your meta is and where your locals play or where, what event you're going to, you can try to make a meta call on, taking either that water or wind bauble out. Fire is going to be in the meta, so probably wouldn't take that out, but those other ones are going to be not as seen in the meta. So you can actually honestly take one of those 2 out and put GCR in, and then you still have the other 2 baubles, maybe put the 3rd bauble in your sideboard. That's just really solid options there. And then another thing you could also do instead is using the Looking Glass. Now the Looking Glass is really expensive, but it does give us access to more powerful swords with Inert Sword and Sword of Shadows. Those 2 swords are basically 2 attack, they have 2 power to those swords, and so they can actually allow you to give a little more oomph from leveling up than you might not necessarily would have had. So those upgrades are anywhere between $60 and $80. So that would put our our deck, just by doing that swap and those cards, adding them in, whether you're using the Inert Sword and Sword of Shadows on the Looking Glass or just the GCR itself, we're going to be looking at a deck cost of about $150, $155 at most, which is definitely not bad. We're still under that $200 mark, but let's move into the main board and talk about some of the cards we could add in there. Okay, so some of those first cards I want to talk about, we'll go from cheaper to more expensive, because there's a very expensive card we could put in, but I don't think the deck needs it, honestly. It's just like a personal preference, honestly, at that point. And honestly, I don't play the deck with it because I don't like how it feels. So we'll start with the cheaper one that I do think you should add. And this card can run anywhere between like $3 to $7, depending on where you can get it from certain places. I was able to get a couple for $4 really easily. So definitely look around. There's definitely places to get it. Core TCG has them as well, but I just want to use them because, like I said, I don't want to put them in the card because they are a more expensive card. Sometimes they can be double the price of the card, and that is Rending Flames. And nice thing is you don't need a 4 of Rending Flames. You only need 1, well, I would say 2 to 3 of them, and then that would honestly help the deck a lot. So a lot of times with this deck, you do have 3 fire cards in your graveyard. Now they might be Suited Allies, or maybe a Blazing Throw, or a something like a Straight Flare or Ashen Riffle or something like that. Rending Flames allows you to take out one of those swords and allow you to, with a Rending Flame, swing for 8 damage with only 4 cards in hand. And then if you have like Blazing Throw to follow up, or if your allies on board or wherever it might be, or Inspiring Calls, that's going to really just push so much more damage on that turn than you thought you might not have been able to. So something I would take out would be like a couple Raised Slash for that. You could also take out maybe another Verita for that, which is, if you're taking out Verita, that's a $2, $3 card. So those Rending Flames become cheaper if you're not going to buy the additional Veritas anyway. So you definitely mess around with that. You can also probably go down 1 Deflecting Edge if you wanted to. You don't necessarily need all of them, but they are nice to have. If you're looking for more counts, you could also do a couple more Noirs or Rouges. 3 is definitely not bad at all. They can be kind of awkward because you have to have the exact number 6, 10, or 21 of reserve costs on board. If you don't have, if you have more or less of any one of those, it will not trigger that on enter. So they can feel a little awkward, but they are strong cards, especially when you start hitting that 10 reserve cost mark. And then I'll talk about the last main board upgrade that, honestly, like I said, I don't actually like. I prefer Inspiring Calls, but one of the cards that people do play is something like Arthur, and then also Red Hairs. Arthur is an expensive card. It is a $40 plus card right now. It used to be a lot cheaper. They used to be about 15 bucks. So if you got yours for cheaper, cool. But right now they are at $40, and that can be quite the strenuous card to buy of, especially if you need 4 of them. So I honestly just stick with Inspiring Calls because I like the feel of it. If you play an Arthur and then in your, give it an Immortal, so you're like, cool, it's gonna last a turn, and then you're against wind and they Dream Fairy it back into your memory, it felt like you did nothing on your first turn and you just put cards down and wasn't able even to develop board or push more damage. Another thing that can happen is you Immortal it, it goes to your turn, and then in your Recollection, they kill it off. That's another option. So I don't really like it. I like the availability to play Inspiring for just one, and then just go for suited allies. It's a really, to me, that's my play style. It might be different for you, and if you have the Arthurs, you can play them certainly over the Inspiring if you want. The other option is also using Red Hair in conjunction with Arthurs, or just Red Hairs in general. Red Hair's not as expensive as Arthurs. Red Hairs tend to run you anywhere between like $11 and $15. The really cool thing about Suited is that it has a lot of unique human fire allies actually in it. So we have the Rouges, we have the Duchesses, and you have Veritas. So if you add in, maybe you want to play something like Zhao Chao, that's also another card you can put in there, and then you can put in your Red Hairs, give you a little more cycle, and Red Hair is just a really good 2-drop deal 3 damage that can survive on a couple more turns and allow you to cycle your deck. Cool thing about Red Hair is it is discarding some cards, so you can discard Suited allies that you might purposely get rid of, so that way you can get Verita out on board. So those are some cards there. I would mess around with some of the counts if you want to. If you have more certain ones that you just like to play, definitely feel free to put those in. Main thing I would be focusing on would be upgrading that material deck over the main deck, honestly. The main deck is pretty darn good. I mean, those Rending Flames I think would be the more crucial main deck card to play. And like I said, if we're adding in a GCR and then we're adding in Rending Flames, we're only probably bringing up our deck cost to around $160 to maybe $170. Probably less than that, honestly. Like I said, if you have any of these cards already, it's not going to cost you much at all. So definitely check out Suited. Definitely try it out. And if you're new to the game, it's probably one of the most user-friendly or best experiences you can get with trying to deal with how to play Grand Archive, opportunities and all that kind of stuff. So definitely check it out. Hope you guys like this type of video. If you do, definitely suggest other types of videos we should make, or check out some of our other videos. In any case, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.